This is the Come Up Collective.
I guess that's what money affords you.
Yeah.
The option to do something with it.
That's right.
I'd even say like more broadly, that's what academics lets you do. It's like even being here, bro. Like we don't pay anything for like. Thank you. He was telling me where to move up.
It's a little closer.
Nah, but like even here, like we don't pay anything to live in a place where the average like rent is like what 18, like 19, like
For your own room, like whoa.
literally we get food, we get 3 meals, bro. Well, 2, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't
That
need
shit
more.
crazy.
Eat. You ain't got to worry about being hungry at
That's
night.
a fact. Yeah, that's valid.
All throughout the month. Niggas on food stamps. End of the month come up. We getting hungry.
Ooh, yeah.
It's
2
about
days
that
in.
time, y'all. About that time. Don't eat too much.
You can't get the nice stuff no more.
You start looking at the corn. The corn and the green beans.
Shout out government assistance, man. That's facts. If you know EBT updated, now they give you this card that look like a Visa card.
Yo, it's been like that.
It's been like that
Really?
for a
When I had it, it was
minute.
like white. It said you poor when you was swiping that shit. It was, and now that shit look like a credit card. That's crazy.
Yeah,
got
bro.
tapped.
That's crazy.
It used to be paper.
That's no. It's for those people in the suburbs. In the city, you don't get the paper. You never got the paper.
Oh,
yeah. And it's, I think in the suburbs you get the paper. Then you go to a grocery store and then they tell you you get 2 milk, 2 breads. In the city, you get
That's hella interesting.
Wow.
We
Okay.
never ended up on food stamps.
Oh really?
Super interesting. Yeah, I had a lot of relatives. My mom was like super prideful about that though.
That's real.
Like we eating rice and chicken every day. Like it's just what it is.
That's real. That's also a big problem. That's one of the biggest problems with food stamps. The shame it causes on people.
That's true. Pride is a big thing for poor families.
Facts.
You spend a lot of your time trying not to be poor.
Yeah.
That's not trying to look poor.
Yeah.
And that shit is wild to me coming here because it's like people that should have like all this like poshness and all this stuff. Niggas is nasty, bro. Absolutely disgusting.
That's why the Roni gonna fuck us up.
You said what?
That's why coronavirus gonna- It make it to campus, we are fucked.
Facts.
Shit already on campus, bro.
Let's not talk about that. Go skip that over. We'll stand for flag this shit down.
That's valid. That's valid.
Man, I thought wealthy people should have cleanliness.
Yeah, it should be at least
The
clean.
thing is, they pay people to.
That's facts.
That's facts.
Nanny cleans
That's
it up.
facts.
Yeah, that's
Also,
probably it.
bro, I hate going to use the restroom, bro, and then just hearing people walk out without washing their hands.
Yeah.
Like, you hear the
That's the
toilet
for
flush,
life.
Yeah.
and then the door closed.
And then I see that
the for
nigga,
life.
like, I entering and he looking at me and I'm looking at him. This nigga want to give me the little. I'm like, nigga, fuck you laughing at, nigga. Go wash your fucking hands, nigga. Fuck this shit in a joke, nigga. Fuck wrong with this
When
nigga.
niggas waking up in the morning talking about, should I brush my teeth this morning?
Nigga, what?
Like,
Like,
yo, Connor, that's not an option. Connor with a kid.
Axel, Axel, please.
man.
Hell nah.
Oh man.
Nigga said Carter. That's not an option. That's funny as shit.
Yo, let me put some of our viewers on to some free game real
What's up,
quick.
please.
I don't know if we might have people in high school right now on the come up, having dreams, reach for some shit, being hungry every other night or some shit. Let me know. There's a future out there. Let me put you on some free game. Apply to those prestigious universities. I know
That's
we
facts.
haven't said this, but we at Stanford right now,
Yeah.
and we joking about this shit. Remittance checks, all this. You get that when you apply to those Ivy Leagues. You look at that price tag online. That's not your price tag, my guy.
Facts.
That is not your price tag.
That's facts.
Apply.
No, that's real.
Apply to those
And that-
Ivies.
That applies to elite private institutions, many of them. And that includes, it doesn't have to be an Ivy, it could be like a Wesleyan. You're talking Amherst. You're talking, there's big elite private schools that cost $40K a year to go to. Poor people ain't paying that. And it's honestly not even like, you could be middle class in this country and you're still not paying that. Because you'll see it'll be like $75K and less. You're probably going there for free. And this applies to all these schools.
It's 125 here. Just to put that in.
It just went up to 150.
Damn.
So
See?
that mean that like if your parents making 150K, you get free, you get your tuition paid for, which is it's interesting. I don't know. It's very interesting to me because I'm like, damn, we should be really helping out the like handful of niggas out here who yes we get everything paid for, but that don't mean like everything paid for. You feel me? Like Stanford still expects you to work. Just to somehow give back to your to your education. Niggas still, you gotta pay for course fees and all this different stuff. And like, it'd be weird too when you have to send mad bread back home. Like a lot of that money you don't see yourself. So that's the thing. Like I agree, increase it for the rich, like help them out, do whatever. But also make sure to cater to the very few fly students on this campus. And more importantly, admissions, y'all need to enroll more fly kids, more hood. That's more diversity. These niggas, you accepted 80 kids from fucking, what's these private schools in fucking Northeast of New Hampshire, Philip, Exeter, all that shit. You accepted 80 kids from there, but you can accept one or two. You accepted 2 niggas from Harlem in like the last 4 years or some shit. Like, come on, like you really need to start investing in the hood, my G. Like for real, how can you talk about changing your classrooms, but nigga, you never bring that shit. Like you don't want to bring the change makers here. That shit corny.
Yeah, I think it's also just like very important to, cause like we've like heard the statistics, right? Like the first gen student, it's hard for first gen students to end up leaving this place, especially in like 4 years, and like it is wild to see like how difficult it is they make it to like get to these resources.
That's facts.
Like, Mama, you were telling me that financial aid could like a financial aid office could help you with like dental procedures and all this other stuff.
And,
Like, there's tutors on campus. People don't even know about that.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it too, and this is especially the case for fly students, asking is the biggest thing.
Oh.
I'm thinking about like all the rich kids and stuff that I was going to class with, asking for extensions on stuff, asking for extra help, demanding shit from like the professors and all this stuff.
Demanding. That's the word.
Shit. Like
you ain't even. They ain't even requesting.
that level, that level of agency, bro. Like
They feel like they deserve it.
They do,
Yeah.
Literally, like, what you mean? I pay for this shit.
That's facts.
Fuck you
That's
mean?
real.
This is
They will
mine.
ask for anything.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate real quick.
oh god,
What would y'all say about the fact that they say poor kids just don't have the profile to make it into Stanford when they if they do apply, because that's one big thing. First they'll self-eliminate and saying like, oh, you know, Stanford, these white colleges aren't for me. Number one, why the hell will I apply? But then for the ones who do apply, they're like, that nigga, they'll look at a profile and say, oh, nigga, that's not impressive. You know, they weren't as involved as their white counterparts or their richer counterparts, let me say.
I guess I have strong feelings on this, just specifically. I think when people push that narrative, what people are forgetting the most is context. And I think some schools are getting better at doing it. Stanford's getting better at doing it. But when you look at a student, let's say, like for me, you look at a student, went to public school that wasn't all that good, it was alright, whatever. Like when you look at a student in context, only then do you see how amazing it was. If a SAT is out of, what is it out of now, 1,600? And a kid got 1,200, an average score for Stanford is 1,500, but that 1,200 that kid got was the highest their school has ever seen. What does that say? What does that say about the excellence that kid can achieve within their context? Now imagine they grew up with all those kids and went to private boarding schools or whatever. Imagine what else they would have achieved. Imagine they could afford to pay to play lacrosse and all these extra sports and go out to research science camps and all this good stuff. Imagine what they could have achieved. So I think the biggest thing I say to that is like, have you thought about that kid's context? Like, but yeah.
That's real.
yeah. I think the problem definitely stems specifically from even just saying profile. You know what I'm saying? Like that already is putting limitations on what's expected, and then that in and of itself is an implication of like what is accepted, what is deemed good, what is deemed academic. You know?
Yeah, that's also valid.
So I second everything you said, especially around context. Like, it's wild to me, like there'll be kids that have all of these resources and still hoping to get in. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine like some of the people that I went to school with, if they had any semblance of the amount of resources that some of these kids have. And I'm even thinking about like just like broader contribution to the campus. Like, people from these backgrounds have a perspective that I think makes Stanford that much better. When it comes to like
true.
in the rooms where people are making decisions about research, software, like all these problems that we facing down the road, like could all be addressed just by including people and listening to people so early on.
I think sometimes people don't even know what to put on their app that's qualified. So one thing I'm thinking of like is like my little brother resells sneakers. That's a business. This nigga been doing this for 3 years. That's entrepreneurship. He been selling sneakers on the come up, waiting in lines. Like niggas write the same thing here, but in like a different context. They be like, "Hey, what?" I just feel like kids be talking about they started businesses here. Like if you been selling sneakers,
Your parents did that.
yeah, your parents did that. Facts.
How you gonna start? Nah.
But if you've been selling sneakers for 3 years, write on your college application. Like, you literally had a business. You've been making money. Like, that's literally profit. And now you know how to market that, whether that was via Instagram and knowing who your customers were, paying niggas to pay you to stand in line. Like, that was a business.
Facts. So let me put that too. When I work or when I go out to these high schools to like talk to low income folks around here, I always tell them, like, you applying to these colleges, bro, your essays is how you gonna stand out.
Facts.
Put that shit in your essays, because the experiences you'll have when you from the hood, like, unique as hell.
Yeah, facts.
Right? Like, selling shoes, ain't too many niggas talking about selling shoes on their thing. I even forgot what I wrote about, to be honest, but like, your essays could make you stand all the way apart. You be like, okay, maybe you didn't have the highest GPA or the highest SAT or ACT scores, but you write that essay that grabs the heart of your admission officer.
Facts.
Oh, man, you're in.
You got him.
For me, the main thing about it is like going back, like, nigga, if I could get a fucking like low ass SAT score, or not even like the lower percentile SAT score for Stanford, and I got hunger issues at home, I got to work, I got mad other shit to do, and you, or not you, but like individuals who go into these boarding schools and private schools, who live on campus, have free meals, have housing, and y'all niggas can get the same score or higher. Like, y'all just not, like, you feel me?
We're not trying to invalidate all the problems you might have.
We not at all.
Think about those.
But we just saying that, like, we got to the same place and we have so much less than y'all. You feel me? And getting in is one of the hardest shit too. You get in is hard, but then staying in is ridiculous. I'm not gonna hold you. I come from a high school where 50% of the black men drop out in the first year. You feel me? I love my high school. I go back and talk to them all the time, but it's difficult to even convince a kid to apply. Feel me, to an elite institution like Stanford. Like, shout out some, you feel me, my son Lasan. You feel me? My young son got into Cornell. He been doing that. He's a freshman there. You feel me? Like, it's hard to even convince a kid to do some shit like that. Do whatever.
I forgot.
It's hard. It's hard to convince a kid to even do something like that, because it's like niggas be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, not like those kids. It's like, you is young and you is.
And it's a cultural, like, adaptation. Like, you gotta adapt once you get here.
Facts.
Oh, man.
Like, you gotta learn real quick.
You gotta start picking up that. First of all, you gotta start picking up that not everybody poor.
Yeah.
Facts. Especially black people.
Right?
Especially black people.
I'm like, oh yeah.
I mean, y'all niggas got money.
I came out here, I'm like, I met
Jack
these
and
niggas
Jill.
That's a difference.
I didn't even know what the hell Jack and Jill was.
Yeah,
Facts, bro.
Jack and Jill, who's that?
Who that?
I haven't met them yet.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think also on that tip, kind of just like even more so now, like addressing like some of the folk that in college right now, I feel like everything was like being here was super discouraging for me, especially freshman, sophomore year. It wasn't until like it's kind of like, let's say like this is an analogy, right? Like everybody's trying to graduate again in 4 years. Let's say that's the race, right? Like, it's really difficult in that race to realize that y'all gonna end up in the same place. And on top of that, it's even more difficult to realize just how fast you're moving. Like people coming over here with all these resources, with all these head starts and all this other stuff, but the amount of ground you're making up in the same amount of time it takes them to get a degree, that in and of itself, like, is such like a radical thing, and that you need to like, it's very important to make sure that you're holding yourself to your own standards and not somebody else's.
Oh yeah, we podding.
So it's like,
we podding.
like in your analogy, right? It's like if niggas is running a mile, right? Fly kids maybe get in at like a quarter. Like, you in the 1/4 of a mile done. These rich niggas at 3/4 of a mile in a fucking Bugatti. Like, racing towards the finish line. Laughing, doing drinks with their professors, and you over there just running along, nigga.
That's real. I like the fact that we moved into, you know, what it's like to be during college. Like, I think it's one important thing of like, you know, as you're struggling and adjusting, especially that first critical year, you definitely got to find your community. Yeah. Right? So any of these freshmen around here watching this, bro, find your community, bro. Because you would be struggling and not be around fly people and think you the only nigga struggling. You looking around, you like, how are you? What? Like, you hiding your score and shit, bro. Like, bro, we struggling too out here.
100%.
It's all in the adjustment, bruh. Especially that first year, like you can't hold yourself against that, bruh. Like you just up the stakes very high
Facts.
in terms of rigor, of all that. So it's big to find your community and build off of that. Right? I don't think I would have made it to senior year without my niggas over here.
Ooh, that's facts.
Facts.
I would not still be here.
I might have been gone my second quarter, my nigga.
That's facts.
I came in here after quarter number 1. A nigga had a 1.8.
Ooh.
1.8. I was like,
I
up.
lied. Stuff for the lie.
We going back to the hood, y'all. We going back home. Maybe I should just enlist or some shit.
That's real.
I could. You imagine going
Damn.
back, bro. You back at the same. I worked at Subway. You back at the same Subway.
Yeah.
Customers coming. Oh, you're back. Yeah. Yeah. But it's just a little break though. It's just a little.
Damn, that's real, man.
you going
Nah,
back
what
to
you
work
just
at
dropped
a deli?
was real, man.
Going back to work at the deli. Ew. Hey, ain't you the Stanford nigga? Yeah, but I serve chopped cheese now.
I just like it better.
Yo, because when you leave your community, like you on top for a little minute. You get into Stanford, you,
Crazy.
like, people know your name and shit.
Stanford.
They on you.
What it do, Stanford?
They don't really know where Stanford at though. Like,
Niggas be saying Stanford.
I'm like, yo, whoa, it's not Stanford, Connecticut. We going to the East Coast. I hate that Stanford, Connecticut shit.
Oh, at the same time, though, I do want to realize that we do have privilege when it comes to this shit.
100.
Like Stanford, nigga, you enter rooms and niggas know it's Stanford. Like you worked hard to get in here, and at the
Whatever
same
that
time,
means.
being fly at Stanford is very different than being fly anywhere else, and that's my biggest distinction I want to make. In the sense of like when you're on campus, like you got 3 meals a day, you got late night food, you got all this other stuff. You get like a card, like your ID card already has money on it type shit. You get mad shit paid for you, room and board. Whereas like there's students like down and up the block in like SF State or San Jose State, and it's like I know my sons. I have a few friends there who like for real, like this shit is difficult for them. Niggas is dumpster diving, niggas is living out their cars, niggas is doing all this shit, and like it really make me check myself of like, yo, yes, like you know, niggas can struggle here too. But it's not the same type of struggle. You feel me?
not at all.
Like we
Facts.
privileged as hell.
it's
for
crazy
real.
to think that we got to think about our privilege now.
That ass.
Wow.
Right?
Nigga,
It's
like,
oh, shit,
we
yeah,
have
this
some
is
shit
wild.
called the opportunity fund, nigga. Like you
That's
need
a
a
safety
suit.
net.
You need a suit. Type some shit up. Show that you poor. You fit the income bracket, nigga. You gonna get that shit soon. Like that shit crazy, bro.
And it's
Like,
valid that you
amazing.
need it and everything, but the fact that you have access to that,
that's wild.
yeah, or just like even our summer study abroad programs where like
Facts.
you low key, if you got no plans for the summer, sometimes at worst you apply for like any of the community service fellowships.
Yeah.
You could get money. It's like the most private school shit ever. Like you apply,
Go
low key is
volunteer.
I don't want. It's a little easy to get. You apply and you can spend your summer working anywhere, doing anything.
Facts.
Most kids don't have access to that.
Facts.
That's 5-6K. They paying you to just like even though you're doing dope work or whatever, but kids don't have access to that. Some people still gotta either go back home for the summer. Or, yeah, privilege poor, man.
Recognize.
Facts.
Privilege poor.
Oh, yeah, we partying, y'all.
Biden.
Body.
I'm trying to know that.